You wake up, check your bank account, and realize you've made the exact same financial decision that keeps you broke again. You're working harder than ever, earning more than you ever have, yet you feel like you're drowning.
Got a point.
You follow the budget, you track your spending, you do everything right, and somehow you're still not getting ahead. Sound familiar? Here's the thing. The problem isn't your effort. The problem is that you've been believing some of the most dangerous financial lies that society has been selling you for decades. And I'm not exaggerating when I say these beliefs are costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. My name's Mamoon, and I spend way too much time thinking about why intelligent, hardworking people remain financially stuck despite doing everything they've been told to do. If you're someone who feels like you're earning decent money, but somehow it disappears every month, if you're confused about what you should actually be doing with your money, or if you suspect that the financial advice you receive might be quietly sabotaging your future, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we're going to dismantle 5 of the most expensive financial beliefs that are probably costing you money right now. And I'm not talking about obvious stuff like credit cards or evil. I'm talking about the sophisticated sounding advice that comes from respected sources, that sounds reasonable on the surface, but absolutely crumbles when you look at the numbers. Building the belief. Let me start with probably the biggest one. The idea that paying off your mortgage as quickly as possible is always the right move. This is the financial advice equivalent to a Trojan horse. It sounds smart, it feels responsible. Your parents probably did this. Your financial advisor might have told you this. Banks certainly want you to believe this. Now you might be thinking, wait, Mamoon, paying off debt is good, isn't it? Yes, but that's where the subtlety matters. We're not talking about debt being good or bad. We're talking about the psychological manipulation that makes you think that accelerating your mortgage payoff should be your top financial priority. Here's what most people don't realize. A mortgage is actually the most favorable debt you'll ever have access to. And I need you to really sit with that statement for a second, because it goes against everything your gut is telling you. The numbers. Let's say you're a 35-year-old with a $400,000 mortgage at a 6.5% interest rate on a 30-year term. The average financial advisor tells you to throw an extra $500 per month at this mortgage. This feels powerful. You're attacking your debt. You'll be done in maybe 24 years instead of 30. You're saving approximately $200,000 in interest over the life of the loan. That sounds incredible, right? Except here's where it gets really interesting. Over those 6 years, where you're throwing that extra $500 per month at the mortgage, that's $36,000 in total extra payments. According to data from the S&P 500 historical returns, the stock market has averaged approximately 10.2% annual returns over the past 70 years. Now, I'm not saying it's guaranteed. Markets go up and down. But historically, that $36,000 invested over 6 years would have grown to approximately $63,000 at average market returns. But wait, there's more. Because mortgage interest is tax deductible. You're not actually saving 6.5% by paying down the mortgage faster. You're saving roughly 4.5% after the tax benefit. Whereas stock market gains, once you hold them long enough, become long-term capital gains, taxed at a preferential rate. The psychological shift, here's what most people don't think about. The reason we feel so good about paying down a mortgage is because of a psychological principle called tangible progress. You can see your home equity going up. You can feel it. Your neighbors can't see your investment account, but they can see your paid-off house. This creates an emotional reward that's completely disconnected from what actually makes financial sense. The financial reality is this. If you're prioritizing mortgage payoff over investing and saving, you're essentially choosing guaranteed 4.5% returns over historically available 10% returns. Over a 30-year period, this choice could literally cost you over $500,000 in lost wealth accumulation. Now you might be thinking, but what about peace of mind? What about not owing money? And that's valid. But let's separate peace of mind from financial optimization. If you genuinely sleep better at night knowing your mortgage is lower, that's worth something. But frame it correctly. Don't frame it as the smart financial move. Frame it as a psychological comfort that costs you money. Because when you frame it that way, you can make an actual decision instead of following what you think you're supposed to do. The action step. If you have a mortgage below 7%, seriously consider whether your extra principal payments should actually go into a diversified investment portfolio instead. Calculate the difference. The math might surprise you. Let's move to something everyone says you need, the emergency fund. You need 6 months of expenses saved in cash, they say. This advice is correct in principle, but wrong in execution for most people, and here's why. The belief we've absorbed. The conventional wisdom is that you should have somewhere between 3 to 6 months of your expenses sitting in a savings account at roughly 0.01% interest, earning basically nothing, just sitting there in case something goes wrong. This sounds like prudent risk management. It sounds responsible. And for certain types of people in certain situations, it absolutely is correct. But for the median person watching this video, this advice is probably making you poorer because it's preventing you from investing money that statistically you won't need. The statistics. According to the Federal Reserve's 2023 survey of household economics and decision-making, 43% of Americans reported that they could not cover a $400 emergency with cash or credit. That's terrifying, and I understand why. That data is why every financial advisor screams about emergency funds. They're reacting to real suffering. But here's what the conversation is missing. 67% of Americans have some form of credit access. According to Experian data, 77% of Americans have credit card access. This is a crucial detail because it changes the math entirely.
That's impossible.
Let's say you're a 28-year-old software engineer making $85,000 a year. You have stable employment, you have a credit card with a $15,000 limit, and you have $25,000 in liquid savings. The conventional advice says you need $18,000 in an emergency fund, 6 months of your typical $3,000 monthly expenses. So you keep $18,000 in a savings account, earning 0.01%. You're earning $1.80 per year on that money. The remaining $7,000 goes into investments. But here's where it gets really interesting. An emergency fund isn't actually about complete financial isolation. It's about liquidity. And there's a crucial difference between complete isolation and having access to credit. If you face a genuine emergency, medical, car repair, whatever, you have 3 resources: your liquid cash, your credit availability, and potentially some investments you can access within a few days. The probability that you'll need all $18,000 simultaneously and still need more? According to Federal Reserve data, less than 2% of Americans face more than one significant financial emergency in a calendar year. The psychological argument. Here's what most people don't realize. The psychological research on emergency funds shows diminishing returns. According to a study published in the Journal of Financial Planning, the security boost from having 1 month of expenses in savings is nearly identical to having 6 months of expenses. Your brain stops feeling secure after a certain point, and additional cash doesn't change your mental state. So you've been sacrificing investment returns for a psychological comfort that plateaus well before 6 months of expenses. The better approach. Instead of holding 6 months of expenses at 0.01%, consider holding 1 month, roughly $3,000 in this example, in a high-yield savings account at 4.5%. That $3,000 yields $135 per year in actual returns. Then keep your credit lines available. Then invest the remaining money. Over 30 years, that extra $15,000 invested at average market returns becomes approximately $165,000. The probability that you'll face an emergency so severe that it empties both your emergency fund and maxes out your credit availability while you have zero access to investments? Statistically negligible. The actionable shift. Assess your actual risk profile. If you're genuinely employed, have access to credit, and you have some liquid savings, you probably don't need the full 6-month emergency fund. Calculate what you actually need based on your credit availability and employment stability, not based on generic advice.
Now here's one that's going to upset some people, so let me be clear up front. I'm not saying don't use retirement accounts. I'm saying that the conventional advice about retirement accounts is creating a specific financial reality that benefits financial institutions far more than it benefits you. The setup. The standard advice is this: maximize your 401k and IRA contributions. Get the employer match. Do it first. People will tell you this is the best use of your money because of tax benefits and forced discipline. But here's what they're not telling you. By putting money into a 401k, you're entering into an agreement where you can't touch that money until you're 59 and a half without substantial penalties. Seems fine when you're young, right? You're not going to need that money. Except life is unpredictable. And more importantly, the math might not actually favor this strategy. The numbers. Let's say you're 30 years old, earning $100,000 per year. Your employer offers a 4% match on 401k contributions. You max out your 401k at $23,000 per year. That's roughly 23% of your gross income. Over 35 years until retirement, that's $805,000 in contributions. At average market returns of 7%, that grows to approximately $8.2 million. But here's where it gets interesting. That $8.2 million will be taxed as ordinary income when you withdraw it in retirement. Depending on your tax bracket, you might pay 24 to 37% in federal taxes alone, plus state taxes. That could be $2.5 million or more in taxes. Now, compare that to investing the same money in a standard taxable brokerage account. You make after-tax contributions, so you only have $15,000 to invest per year instead of $23,000. Over 35 years, that's $525,000 in contributions. But those investments grow at the same 7% rate to approximately $5.2 million. Here's the critical part. Long-term capital gains tax is only 15% for most people, sometimes 0% if you're below certain thresholds. Your tax bill? Maybe $780,000 instead of $2.5 million. And you still have $5.2 million. Now, the catch. Now, you might be thinking, wait, but what about the employer match? That's free money. And you're right. The 4% match is worth roughly $2 million over 35 years. That's substantial. That's why I'm not saying skip the match. What I am saying is that the conventional advice to max out the 401k might not be optimal for everyone, especially younger people with decades until retirement. The psychological manipulation. Here's what most people don't realize. The reason we're so enthusiastic about 401ks is because of deferred psychology. The money goes straight from your paycheck to the 401k. You never see it. This creates the psychological illusion that you're not losing money. It's a behavioral finance trick that has absolutely been leveraged by financial services companies to encourage more savings, which benefits them. The truth is, maxing out a tax-deferred account for decades might cost you significant wealth due to the tax burden at withdrawal. The nuance. Here's where I need to be precise because this matters. If you're in a high tax bracket now and expect to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, the 401k math works better for you. If you're in a moderate tax bracket now and will probably be in a similar or higher tax bracket in retirement, which is increasingly likely given inflation, then you might be better off with a Roth strategy or a taxable account strategy. The action step is this. Calculate your actual tax burden both now and in retirement before you automatically max out the 401k. It's only the best move if you've actually done the math. Let's talk about one that's going to make some people uncomfortable. The way we think about diversification is often a mechanism for lowering your returns without meaningfully reducing your risk. The conventional narrative. Every financial advisor says the same thing. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify across asset classes. Own stocks, bonds, real estate, commodities, international exposure. Your portfolio should be a rainbow of different asset types. This is treated as gospel. It's presented as the only rational approach to investing. People who concentrate their money are seen as reckless gamblers. People who diversify are seen as prudent. But here's the thing. This advice is partially a financial industry self-preservation mechanism. The statistical reality, according to research from Vanguard and from the CFA Institute, is that when you look at historical returns from 1926 to 2023, a 100% domestic stock portfolio significantly outperformed a diversified portfolio of 60% stocks and 40% bonds. We're talking about a roughly 2 to 2.5% annual return advantage over nearly a century. Now that 2.5% difference compounds over time. A 25-year-old investing $10,000 per year into an all-stock portfolio versus a traditional diversified portfolio would have approximately $1.1 million more at age 65 with the stock approach. But here's what gets interesting. The contrary argument is about volatility and drawdown risk. The all-stock portfolio had worse years. It had bigger crashes. The emotional toll is real. The psychological truth is, the reason financial advisors push diversification so heavily is not purely because it's optimal. It's because it reduces the chances that you'll be angry at them. If your all-stock portfolio crashes 40% in 2008 and your advisor was recommending that, you're firing them. If your diversified portfolio crashes 20%, you're more likely to stick with them. Diversification is not objectively wrong, but it's often recommended at a level that's more about protecting the advisor's reputation than protecting your wealth. The mathematics of concentration. Here's where it gets really interesting. If you have a 20-year time horizon, or 30-year time horizon, or 40-year time horizon, which is basically anyone under 50 saving for retirement, the historical data shows that concentration actually reduces your risk when you look at things through the lens of reaching your financial goals. Because remember, risk isn't volatility. Risk is failing to reach your objective. If your objective is to reach a certain amount of wealth by retirement, then being diversified into low-yielding bonds is actually increasing your risk that you won't reach your goal. The nuance that matters. This doesn't mean put everything into Tesla stock. That's ridiculous, and I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that if you're young with a long time horizon, owning 80 or 90% equities with the balance in cash or bonds is probably more aligned with your actual risk profile than the 60-40 conventional recommendation. The action. Calculate what return you actually need to reach your goals, and then ask yourself if you're getting that return. If you're not, and you have time to recover from market downturns, then reconsider your diversification. You might be sacrificing returns for a theoretical risk reduction you don't actually need. Here's the final one, and it's the most subtle. The finance advice industry has conditioned you to believe that the path to wealth is primarily about increasing your income. Earn more, save more, invest more. It's simple. It makes sense, and it's incomplete in a way that's costing most people tremendous amounts of money. The narrative. The typical financial journey story looks like this. You're earning $50,000 a year. You need to earn $75,000 a year. You need to earn $100,000 a year. At each stage, you believe that the extra income is what's going to unlock your wealth. And technically, more income does help. But the emphasis on income as the primary variable is creating a specific financial psychology that's deeply problematic. The real data. According to analysis from the Federal Reserve and IRS data, 50% of American households have essentially the same net worth at age 35 as they did at age 25. That's a decade of work, increased income, and promotion, and yet no wealth accumulation. Why? Because as income increased, lifestyle increased proportionately. It's called lifestyle inflation, or, more accurately, the hedonic treadmill. The math of this failure.
Let's say you start at $50,000 a year at age 25. By age 35, you're earning $85,000 a year. That's a 70% increase in income. That's substantial. Most people would say this represents real progress. But if your expenses increased from $45,000 to $78,000 a year, which happens in about 80% of cases, your savings rate is actually identical or worse. You still have $5,000 a year to save at age 25, and now at age 35 you have $7,000 per year. The additional income became absorbed by your lifestyle. Over 10 years, that extra $2,000 per year compounds to basically nothing compared to what you should have accumulated. The psychological mechanism. Here's what most people don't realize. Income is subject to a phenomenon called income dampening. Each dollar you earn above your previous benchmark feels like less progress because you've already adjusted to your previous income level. The hedonic plateau is real. Meanwhile, your colleagues are upgrading their homes, buying nicer cars, and going on better vacations. The social pressure is enormous. And because wealth